So 70,000 years ago, humanity was, well, we were virtually dead.
Oh, absolutely. Teetering right on the edge.
Right. The sun was blocked, the earth was freezing, and the global population had dwindled to just a few thousand of us, just shivering in caves and fighting over whatever scraps were left.
Yeah, a tiny, tiny fraction of what we are today.
I mean, by every conventional law of biology, we should have gone extinct right then and there. We were just physically outmatched by our environment, but instead our brains did something completely impossible. They went quantum.
Which is an absolute paradigm shift in how we view human evolution. I mean, the physical evidence of our survival during that era, it just stops making sense if you only look at it through a traditional linear biological lens.
Right, it doesn't add up.
Not at all. The sources we are exploring today suggest we aren't just biological computers executing rigid genetic scripts. They propose that in our darkest hour, human cognition literally tapped into the subatomic architecture of the universe.
It's wild to even say out loud. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking you on a journey back to the brink of our own extinction.
It's going to be a fascinating one.
Yeah, our mission today is to explore excerpts from a profoundly fascinating text called Symbolic Consciousness-18th P. And this text lays out a theoretical framework known as the Way of POE.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
The core of what we're looking at is a radical theory about how our ancestors survived. And not by, mutating bigger muscles or sharper teeth,
Yeah, nothing like that.
but by completely overhauling our biological operating system to become intrinsically linked to the fabric of reality itself.
And to understand the mechanics of how that happened, we first have to understand the absolute desperation of the environment that forced it.
Because it was bad. Really bad.
Beyond bad. The texts point to an environmental apocalypse driven largely by the Toba supervolcanic eruption.
Oh.
Yeah. And this wasn't just a bad winter. We're talking about an eruption so massive, it literally choked the atmosphere with ash. It triggered volcanic winters that lasted for years and completely disrupted global climate patterns.
Just a total systemic collapse.
Exactly. Widespread, unrelenting drought followed. The food chain collapsed. Everything died.
Which leads directly to what the text calls a severe genetic bottleneck.
Right.
We were reduced to this tiny, highly vulnerable population just scattered across a completely hostile landscape. And the selective pressure to adapt wasn't just high, it was an evolutionary ultimatum. Like, you either figure out a completely new way to survive in this barren world, or
your species is erased from the fossil record.
right, game over.
Exactly. Now, typically, nature's response to, we need to be smarter to survive, is to gradually build a bigger brain.
Sure, that's what we see in the textbooks.
Right. We see that throughout the hominid fossil record spanning millions of years. Brain cases get larger.
Yeah.
But 70,000 years ago, nature hit a literal brick wall.
A biological wall.
Yes. It hit the hard biological limit of the female birth canal. Because humans had already evolved to walk upright. Bipedalism, the human pelvis had narrowed. You simply cannot birth a baby with an infinitely expanding head.
Right, which is just this terrifying track to be in. It's like you're trying to upgrade your computer to run a massive, complex, new software suite that will literally save your life.
Yeah.
But you physically run out of room in the laptop case to cram in a bigger hard drive.
That's a great way to put it.
You are entirely stuck with the hardware you currently possess. Survival demands exponentially more processing power to navigate this resource-depleted world, but the physical brain cannot grow another inch.
So if the hardware can't change, the behavior has to. And this is where the Way of POE introduces the concept of agency.
Agency.
Right.
Yeah.
So under normal, less apocalyptic conditions, basic sociobiological reflexes dictate behavior. If you are starving, your animal instinct says, compete, hoard, fight for the last scrap of meat.
Survival of the fittest, the baseline individualistic drive.
Exactly. But the Toba bottleneck was so severe that those individualistic strategies were failing.
They were just killing each other.
Right. Entire groups were wiping each other out, fighting over nothing. So to survive, they had to behave contrary to their standard biological programming.
Wow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, they had to act with true agency, overriding the deep-seated instinct to hoard and consciously choosing instead to cooperate, to share resources, and plan abstractly across large groups.
See, I have to push back here, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Because it's really easy for us to sit here with full stomachs and talk about overriding biological programming. But how does a species running purely on adrenaline and starvation consciously decide to orchestrate a massive software upgrade.
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, like if their brains literally don't have the biological hardware for high-level abstract thought yet, how do they suddenly leap into complex cooperation? You can't just wish yourself into being smarter.
You're absolutely right, and that is exactly the paradox that text addresses. They couldn't do it with their existing neural architecture.
Okay.
The conventional linear biological pathways just weren't fast enough or complex enough. Since nature couldn't expand the brain's physical mass to facilitate this leap in agency, it had to find a workaround.
A hack, basically.
Exactly. A workaround to drastically increase the efficiency and connectivity of the existing brain. And according to the framework in our sources, that workaround happened at the subatomic level.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the workaround nature found wasn't biological at all.
No, it wasn't.
According to the Way of POE, it was quantum. The text proposes that the specific ions responsible for transmitting electrical signals between neurons actually became quantum entangled.
Yes. The framework suggests that human cognition dipped into the quantum realm to survive.
But wait, I need to challenge the physics on this because physicists are notoriously strict about entanglement.
Oh, very strict.
Like, in a laboratory setting, to keep two subatomic particles entangled so they interact instantly over a distance, scientists have to isolate them in vacuums. They have to cool them down to near absolute zero.
Right, the decoherence problem.
Yeah. Any outside interference causes the quantum state to collapse. So how does the Way of POE justify this super delicate quantum state surviving inside the warm, wet, messy biology of a caveman's brain?
It's a brilliant question, and it sits at the very heart of the debate surrounding quantum biology today. The source totally acknowledges this warm and wet problem.
So how do they get around it?
Well, the argument is that biological systems have had billions of years of evolution to develop incredibly highly engineered mechanisms. Mechanisms that we are really only just beginning to understand.
Like what?
We already see this in other areas of nature, like the efficiency of photosynthesis in plants, or the magnetic navigation of certain birds.
Oh, right. They use quantum effects, right?
Exactly. Both of which rely on quantum coherence at ambient temperatures. So the text posits that the specialized microenvironments within our neural ion channels,
The little pathways in the brain.
right, these incredibly tight, highly structured protein tubes, they essentially act as natural quantum isolators. They shield the ions just enough from thermal noise to allow transient, yet profoundly impactful, states of entanglement.
Wow. So instead of needing a super cooled laboratory, the brain's own microscopic architecture provides the shielding.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see the theory there. But what does that actually do to the thought process? Like, if I'm an early human and the ions in my neural pathways suddenly start tangling up, how does that functionally change my perception of reality?
Think about how a standard biological brain works. A signal travels down a neuron, releases chemicals across a synapse, and triggers the next neuron.
It's chain reaction.
Right, it's a sequence,
Yeah.
a row of dominoes falling. It is fast, but it is ultimately limited by physical space and time.
Because the chemical has to literally travel the distance.
Exactly. Quantum entanglement breaks that linear chain entirely. If millions of ions across different regions of the brain are entangled, a change in one instantly correlates with a change in the others. It bypasses the physical synapses altogether.
Okay, so instead of neurons playing a slow game of telephone down a long physical wire, entanglement is it's like a flash mob.
Oh, a flash mob. I like that.
Yeah, every single dancer knows the exact next move simultaneously. They don't have to look at each other or wait for a signal from the person next to them. The whole system just moves as one unified entity.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The processing becomes holistic and instantaneous. The brain becomes a true quantum device.
That is wild.
And this mechanism, this instantaneous global brain coherence, is what the text argues gave birth to symbolic thought.
Because it's all happening at once.
Right. Because you are no longer just reacting linearly to immediate sensory input. Your brain can now hold complex, multifaceted representations of reality simultaneously.
Give me an example.
Well, you can hold the physical reality of a wooden stick, the memory of a mammoth, and the abstract, completely non-existent idea of tomorrow in your mind all at once. And you link them together to invent a spear.
Which completely upends the traditional mechanistic view of consciousness. We usually treat consciousness as just, the hum of the engine, the passive byproduct of biological neurons firing.
The ghost in the machine.
Right. But this framework suggests consciousness is a fundamental interaction with the quantum mechanics of the universe.
It means we aren't merely passive biological machines observing the world. But if their brains are suddenly processing reality holistically like this, it radically alters how they interact with their environment and each other.
Naturally.
And the most immediate world-altering application of this flash mob brain wasn't abstract philosophical pondering, it was communication.
Right. Because having a quantum brain doesn't stop the supervolcano from freezing your environment. You still have to survive the ice age.
Exactly. You can't just think your way out of freezing to death. Now, before this cognitive leap, the anthropological record suggests humans relied on what we call proto-language.
Proto-language. What did that actually sound like? Are we talking about just grunting, or is there some structure to it?
It was more specific than simple grunts, but it was highly tethered to the immediate physical present.
Okay.
Think of it as a localized vocabulary of maybe a few hundred specific sounds or gestures. A specific call that means snake, a different one for eagle, maybe a gesture for water.
It's very reactionary.
Very. It was functional for immediate survival, but it entirely lacked syntax. It lacked the ability to convey abstract time or hypothetical situations.
You couldn't tell a story.
Right, you couldn't communicate, hey, if we cross the river tomorrow, the hunting might be better, but the wolves are also migrating there.
You're just reacting to the immediate screen in front of you.
Exactly.
But once that quantum entanglement links up the brain's processing centers, language doesn't just get slightly more vocabulary, it explodes.
Oh, absolutely explodes.
The source text emphasizes that symbolic language became so incredibly rich, it could literally describe reality itself. They could process symbols, using words as abstract tools to represent things that weren't physically there.
And consider how this directly combated the extinction bottleneck.
Okay, yeah.
What's fascinating here is that with symbolic language, you can transmit complex knowledge across generations. The new generation doesn't have to experience the danger firsthand to learn from it.
They just get the download from the elders.
Right. You create shared narratives.
Yeah.
You can conceptualize a multi-step hunting strategy, communicate it to 50 other individuals, and coordinate a massive synchronized defense against predators.
Like, if I figure out how to weave a better fishing net out of vines, I don't have to just physically drag you over and show you my hands doing it.
No, you don't.
I can explain the conceptual framework to someone from a completely different tribe, and they can take that abstract idea home and build it themselves.
Yes.
So suddenly, our physically vulnerable, freezing species is crowdsourcing survival across vast distances.
Precisely. And this brings us to one of the most provocative claims in the Way of POE. The text suggests that because of this quantum interconnectedness and the resulting shared narratives, these early humans became active participants in the creation of their world.
Okay, let's ground this concept, because this is where the text can start to sound a little bit mystical if we aren't careful.
That's a fair point.
What does it mean scientifically or anthropologically to say our symbolic consciousness is actively shaping reality? We aren't talking about telekinesis here. They aren't staring at a blizzard and wishing it away with their minds.
No, it is not magic or telekinesis. It's about how shared belief and collective intention alter objective probabilities in the physical world. Let me give you an example.
Please do.
In a purely biological pre-quantum paradigm, a raging river is an impassable obstacle. That is the objective physical reality.
You just don't cross it.
Right. But a quantum-enabled, symbolically conscious group looks at the river and conceptualizes a bridge.
Something that doesn't exist.
The bridge does not exist anywhere in nature. It is a shared hallucination, really, a completely abstract thought. But because they can communicate this shared abstract concept, they coordinate their physical actions in the real world to chop down trees and build it.
So the shared symbolic thought literally reorganizes the physical matter of the forest into a bridge.
Yes.
The reality of the environment has been permanently altered by an intention that started in a quantumly entangled brain state. They aren't just adapting to the river anymore. They are forcing the physical environment to adapt to their abstract thought.
Exactly. The thought precedes the physical reality. By creating shared myths, complex social rules, and cooperative strategies, they were actively shaping the probability of their own survival through collective will.
That is a massive paradigm shift. But, there is a dark side to this, isn't there?
Oh, definitely.
Because if you have a brain that is suddenly capable of conceptualizing tomorrow bridges and complex social strategies, you're also going to start conceptualizing things that are far more terrifying.
The big questions.
Yeah. If you can think completely abstractly about reality, inevitably you're going to look around at this freezing post-volcanic wasteland, look at your dwindling tribe and ask why.
The birth of existential dread.
Exactly.
The text points out a profound truth here. You cannot have symbolic thought without eventually turning it inward to question your own existence. Early humans, newly equipped with this staggering cognitive power, desperately needed to know the meaning and purpose of life.
So, what does this all mean for them in practice? They look up at the ash-filled sky, they see their children starving, and they demand an explanation from the universe.
But they completely lack the empirical scientific knowledge to explain a supervolcanic eruption.
Right. They don't know what tectonic plates are, they don't know how climate systems work.
No. And the text is surprisingly blunt about their solution.
Yeah.
It says, they made it up, and thus was born religion.
They made it up.
It is a stark phrase, I know. But the way of POE requires us to look past the surface and unpack the sheer brilliance behind that making it up. In the total absence of empirical data, they used their new symbolic capacity to create mythology. They projected human-like agency onto the sun, the storms, the animals. They built massive, intricate spiritual frameworks to explain the inexplicable suffering around them.
And I think a lot of people today, reading that text, might view it dismissively.
Very easily, yeah.
Like, oh, look at the ignorant cavemen inventing thunder gods because they didn't understand basic meteorology.
Right, a very modern bias.
But based on everything we've just discussed regarding quantum brain function and survival, that's entirely the wrong way to look at it.
Completely.
If we view this through the lens of evolutionary pressure, making up religion was arguably the single most successful application of our new quantum brains.
It was the ultimate survival technology. This raises an important question, right?
Right.
The source explicitly invites us to look at these ancient spiritual beliefs with profound respect because they served a highly calculated vital function.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what happens to a starving, isolated tribe facing a global apocalypse if they succumb to nihilism? If they believe their suffering is entirely random and meaningless?
Oh. They give up.
Exactly.
The social fabric just fractures. The individual instinct to hoard takes over again. They turn on each other, and the tribe dies.
Precisely. Religion and mythology provided the cohesive glue that prevented that psychological collapse. It offered solace and a framework of control in a deeply uncertain world.
Because it gave them a script.
Yes. If a drought is just random suffering, you despair. If a drought is framed as a test from the spirits, you perform a ritual, you band together, you enforce strict moral codes of sharing, and you maintain the psychological resilience to keep searching for water.
The shared religious narrative is what allowed the agency we talked about in the very beginning to actually function in reality.
Exactly.
You can override your selfish biological urge to eat the last piece of meat because your shared mythology tells you that sharing it will appease the gods or honor the ancestors or secure a place in an afterlife.
The story itself isn't physically real, but its impact on objective survival is entirely tangible.
And that is the bridge. The Way of POE builds between our distant past and our present. It suggests that the origins of religion and mythology are intimately tied to the exact same quantum cognitive leap that eventually gave us the scientific method.
It's all connected.
Our ancestors used their new holistic brains to invent the narratives that kept humanity alive long enough for empirical science to eventually exist.
It really is a beautiful loop. It completely reframes how we should view human history. The Way of POE is fundamentally arguing that to truly understand ourselves, we cannot discard either half of our cognitive heritage.
Right.
The ultimate thesis of the text is integration. We are not purely rational, biological, calculating machines, nor should we be lost purely in unexamined superstition. We achieve a truly holistic understanding of our place in the cosmos when we embrace both the rigorous insights of modern quantum science and the profound, narrative-driven wisdom of our ancestors.
Because both are manifestations of the exact same quantum consciousness.
Yes, a consciousness that refused to accept a biological dead end 70,000 years ago.
We hit the wall of the laptop case, so we rewired the motherboard at the subatomic level.
That's it.
It changes how you look at yourself, doesn't it? Like you, listening to this right now, your ability to visualize that ancient ash cloud, to process the mechanics of this conversation, to find meaning in your own daily life, all of that is the direct legacy of a desperate, brilliant, evolutionary workaround.
A workaround that allowed us to write our own code.
And that leaves us with one final lingering thought, something to just mull over as you go about the rest of your day. If our ancestors used their brand new symbolic consciousness to invent myths and stories that literally saved them from extinction 70,000 years ago, what made up stories, what modern myths or shared societal narratives are we relying on right now to survive our own modern bottlenecks? And the real question is, are they still working?